How's it going, everybody? We are creeping closer and closer to spring training. Got a little bonus content for you. I had a conversation with Ray Fonseca. He's an actor. He's from Queens. He's been on a number of daytime TV shows. Big Yankees fan. And we just kind of wanted to talk about who runs New York. I also made a recent appearance on Foul Territory, where we talked about the major things that are facing the Yankees this year as they try and get back to the World Series. So after my conversation with Ray, I will air that interview, little interlude in between. And now, without further ado, Ray Fonseca.
Just wanted to talk, that's all.
There's a lot of Yankee podcasts, Yankee fan casts, Yankees this, Yankees that, and I've found a lot of them to be no more credible than a random Instagram post. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to sit there and listen for 35 minutes about why we might get a Reyes when they're not getting a Reyes, you know? And I feel like, I don't know if it's because you started with the recaps, that you kind of wait for things to be worth talking about before speaking on them.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not a journalist, right? So, like, a lot of people go out there and try and be journalists, but they didn't go to, like, journalism school. They have no sources. But I've been watching the Yankees and reacting to it my whole life. So I always just say I react to the news. I don't break the news, right? So, and because of that, I've had more access to the news now. And sometimes I want to break stuff, but I'm like, My mom is a fan of the soaps. She watches, you know, One Life to Live and all that stuff, and all the daytime, General Hospital, all that. So she probably has seen you a few times in your appearances. I went through your
I mean, I was on All My Children for like 7 years, and then Days of Our Lives for like 9 years.
Yeah,
I'm one of those few people that can be like, I'm not a doctor, but I played one on TV. So, but
Dr. Drake Ramore.
If I had a nickel for every time somebody said like Joey on Friends, like I could probably like buy a share of the Yankees, you know. But it's always kind of been something that I appreciate because I get to be on set every day, do what I love to do, you know, act, tell stories, be creative, all those kind of, you know, different aspects of the game. But at the same time, I can go to Target and nobody knows who I am. And it's kind of glorious. You know what I mean? It's like the best of both worlds, you know?
I hear you there. So I live in North Carolina, and I've been recognized from the podcast maybe 3 or 4 times. I went to Yankee Stadium, and I spent like the whole time posing for pictures. I didn't get to see the game because people were, hey, let me get a selfie. Or people recognize me from YouTube. You're the YouTube guy. They didn't know my name. They didn't know what the podcast. Yeah, I seen you on YouTube. So yeah, but it's kind of cool being anonymous. You know, I got it's also kind of cool being recognized once in a while. I went to UPS and the guy saw my name and did a double take, and then once at Bonefish Grill, a guy was like, "Hey, I know you." So I've been recording this whole time, so we can just fire away if you want. I saw that you're from Queens. Sure. What did you make of the whole Juan Soto saying that New York is a Mets town and has been for a while? That was like the only part of that whole thing I felt offensive. Or I felt was offensive to me. Like, if you want to just take more money, just do that. Like, if you want to be the guy on your team, go do that. But don't you have to diss the Yankees on the way out. The Mets are not even in the same stratosphere as the Yankees.
I couldn't agree more. And I felt the same way with the AJ Minter signing. Yeah. Where it's like, you've never been a Yankee, you know, and it's like, here's your press conference, and you're like, you know, the real fans and that sort of thing. And I forget who posted it, but I had just written, I was like, you know, if he signed with the Yankees instead of the Mets for some reason, and he had a press conference, which you probably wouldn't give AJ a press conference.
Right, exactly.
Let's be honest, right? But if we did, no one would ask what his opinion of the Mets or Met fans are, right? So right away I saw that and I was just kind of like, okay, this is like WWF, right? Like, you know, and you know, look, I grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens. Like, you know, I was almost equidistant from Shea Stadium and Yankee Stadium. You know what I mean? My dad was from the Bronx. My mom was from Queens. So it was like, you know, I grew up a Yankee fan. My dad had season tickets. The day I was born, he already had season tickets. Like, we still have frozen, like, Reggie bars in, like, Ziploc bags in the refrigerator. And because of that, like, my friends' dads had Mets fan season tickets, right? And then my dad had Yankee season tickets. So we'd take them to games. They'd take us to games. It was just the love of baseball, right? And I've always kind of felt like Jeter nailed it with the quote, right? Like, it's never been a rivalry for us. Like, it's just the Mets, you know? And I don't mean that to, like, trigger Met fans, or it's just one of those things where it's like, I feel like they benefit and they're called a big market team because they share the city with us. I mean, if the Knicks played in Queens, you wouldn't even run Queens, so it's just something where I just feel like ease up, because I've always, Mets played the Royals in 2015 in the World Series. I was rooting for the Mets. I was rooting for New York. Like, I've never rooted against the Mets unless you're playing my Yankees, right? And never before. Whereas I feel like it sort of feels like betrayal, where it's like every time the Yankees make it to the World Series, whoever we're playing, all the Met fans are rooting for them. And it's like, they go, how come you haven't won in so long? It's like, well, maybe the energy's a little off, guys. What do you think? Like, how about rooting for New York, But
whenever people ask me, what do I think of the Mets? Up until recently, I was like, well, I don't. I don't think of the Mets. Like, I don't concern myself with the Mets. I am going to follow what happens with Juan Soto this year. I want to see how he does. I don't think he's going to do as well without Judge hitting behind him. I think he's going to go back to hitting 270. I think he's going to hit maybe 35 home runs. And he's going to walk a gazillion times because he's got no protection in the lineup. But he's happy to do that because everybody says, oh, the great eye, the wonderful eye, and the plate vision and all that stuff. It's not going to help the Mets overcome the Dodgers having Juan Soto walk, right? It's just I don't think Mets fans are prepared for what they're actually getting. A poor outfielder, a guy who can't run the bases.
All of my friends that are Met fans, we've been, lifelong friends, right? Like, we've been in the same fantasy leagues for over 20 years. It's so the ribbing and the, hey, we beat you guys on the back page of the Post. And I'm kind of like, hey, cool, man. There's another Post coming out tomorrow, though. It's not a title. It's not a thing. And I just feel like it's something that, as Yankee fans, we're kind of used to everyone, I like to say, hate us because they ain't us. But I feel like so many people now generationally are born after our last title, haven't seen us win a title, but have grown up hating us because it's like the cultural thing to do. And I've always just kind of felt like, let the Mets be the Mets, let the Yankees be the Yankees. And hey, if we meet last time we met in the World Series, didn't work out so well for you guys, right? So let's stick to the resumes, you know what I mean, and not base it off hype and things of that nature. And I think you nailed it the other day when you said that, when people are like, well, he's not there to protect Aaron Judge anymore. And it's like, no, protection is batting after, not before. Right. And I just saw the other day his projected WAR for this coming year was 6.5, where it was 11 last year.
It was it was 7.9. It was it was good. He had a good year. I don't want to take anything away from Juan Soto. He had a terrific year. But let's just be honest. $765 million is a overpay for that man as a baseball player. They had to pay that.
Signing A-Rod 3 times at the same time.
He's getting paid twice as much as Judge. You cannot tell me in any universe where he's worth twice as much as Judge. Judge is just flat out a better player, and he's going to be, even while Juan Soto is supposedly 26 years old. I say supposedly. I know I've caught some flack for that, but I'm going to say it. Supposedly 26 years old. For the next 3 or 4 years, he's going to be in his prime, while Aaron Judge is supposedly on the tail end of his prime. I'll still take Judge's stats over Soto's prime stats, despite being older, over the next 3 or 4 years.
Right. It's like, would we finish 82 and 80 in 2023, right? And made $179 million more than the Dodgers, over $200 million more than the Mets. The whole brand thing, it's just we went through it with the Astros fans, right? You guys took 76 years to win the first thing, and it was questionable. And now it's we own you, we're your daddy. And it's first of all, that's the Red Sox line. At least have your own parody on hand, But I just sort of feel for as great as Juan Soto is, no one can take away the fact that, even last year, come on. I think any Yankee fan would be lying if you said that if Juan Soto was on deck and we had runners up in the playoffs, you're like, okay, we're about to do some damage right now, because he's might be the toughest out in baseball. Not the best runner. I think I could play right field better than Juan Soto, but that's besides the point. Not a great runner. He's healthy all the time. He's in the lineup every night. He earns his keep. Within his own right, he earns his keep, and I think that's great. And I'm glad the Mets have a player now. So now we can maybe can start to have that conversation about who's who, right? But at the same time, I don't know if you agree or not, but I feel like everything that's going on with Pete Alonso, I'm kind of shocked by it. I don't care what he turned down in the past. I don't care this or that. I just look at it like us already having Judge and then getting Soto was a perfect situation. If you just go out and give almost $1 billion. It might be 805 when he's obviously going to opt out to get the increase, of course. But if you don't have that guy backing him up so that Juan Soto can be fully Juan Soto, it almost feels like you're going to have to waste a couple of years until you find that dynamic.
My thought on this, I don't think that the Mets actually want Pete Alonso. I think that they're doing this whole dog and pony show to show the fans that they made an effort, but they got David Stearns there. And David Stearns is looking at this and he's saying, look, he's not a big spender, and he's saying, I don't want to overpay for a 3 or 4 year deal for Pete Alonso when I got Vladimir Guerrero, who could be available in 3 months or could be available in 6 months, who's younger, who's a better hitter. You pair him with Juan Soto for 5-6 years of their prime. I don't think he's going to have a long prime just because of his body type, right? So, but still, the next 3 or 4 years, that tandem, when you combine with Lindor still being pretty good, we'll see what they've got from some of their younger guys, Vientos and so forth. But if I'm David Stearns, I'm saying, let's make it look like we want Alonso, but we really don't want Alonso. Alonso is thinking, well, maybe I can get a 3-year deal with an opt-out, but then he probably wouldn't opt out, right? So I don't see it happening.
It seems like the fans would like him back because they feel like they're onto something. And I'd agree that they are obviously onto something. They have a couple of great young players, with Mauricio and Acuna and things like that, Vientos. But at the same time, if Mark Vientos hit 240 next year, would everyone be like, oh, my God, I can't believe he hit No, he wouldn't. Where it's like Pete has been your guy, right? Like I would even say more so than Lindor has in certain ways, where it's like if you just had Lindor with no Alonso, no one's scared of that, right? And I just feel like if you have 1, 2, 3, Lindor, Alonso, even Vladimir Guerrero, Yankee fans understand this. Who's after them though, right? And you had mentioned, wanting to talk about the Yankees offseason, and I feel like a lot of people are like, Hal doesn't spend, or Hal this or Hal that. And I'm just like, look, I look at it like George Steinbrenner, our Yankee team when he was in charge, was an extension of him. If we weren't doing well, his pride was hurt personally. Hal doesn't have that connection with the team the same way. I look at it like as if George Steinbrenner created McDonald's and Hal just took over the brand and is running a corporation that happens to be a baseball team. So to that extent, I can't fault him. You know what I mean? Like not everybody shares the same passion as their parents did for something they built, right? It was his thing.
Let's put it in perspective. So George Steinbrenner was a shipbuilder, right? And he that was his main business. He bought the Yankees as a passion project, and it became his big thing. It took over his life. I started this podcast as kind of like a side hustle, and it's taken over my life. It's become the thing that I'm most passionate about. And I could see the competitive nature in George Steinbrenner, where he would be like, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be all in, I want to win. Whereas Hal Steinbrenner, he was born into this. It's the family business, right? He was never building ships. He doesn't run a hedge fund. He's a guy whose hobby is flying, right? His passion is flying. And so that's why if you hear him give an interview, it's not about how great the Yankees are. It's about how much he loves being in the air and all that stuff. So his passions are different. This is his business. He's running it more like a business and less like a hobby, right? He's running it for his family's. Yeah.
He's doing an excellent job. Every year we break our revenue record from the year prior. Every single year, right? So I just look at it like I feel like I listen to all the time. I feel like we share the same sentiment. I feel like it's not so much about how much we spend; it's in the way we spend it. And the difference between father and son is if George gave Arabu a ton of money, didn't work out, get rid of the guy. I'll eat it because that was our bad. Fans should not have to endure the duration of it. Just get rid of it. Where it's like Hal is sort of like, well, just because we've hit 300 million, it's like we should be able to do that. It's like, well, we could do it for 220 million if you gave it to the right people, but you're not. And then when you realize, hey, this is maybe too long of a deal, or let's get the youth movement at certain positions. Don't be afraid to say, hey, we made a mistake. We're going to get rid of this guy, and show the fans that we're willing to eat that cost because it's our mistake. You're not going to force me to pay $300 to sit, close to the field to watch DJ LeMahieu not play baseball. It's like get rid of people if you need to. And I understand his loyalty and things like that, but I agree it's to a fault. It is to a fault because Cashman I remember like Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like, don't judge me on my my wins, judge me on my losses because I have so few, right? Okay, well, let's judge you on those losses. George would have said, Harper, whatever you want, come here, because that's the type of guy you give the money to, right? Machado, whoever it is, come here. That's it. You don't give it to Hicks or Gallo or this one or that one, and then when it doesn't work out, if you weren't scared to give that guy all that deal, that money, then don't be scared to go, we made a mistake, we're gonna move on, right? Because then you don't give the kids the chance to fill in the gaps, because now you're holding guys on for too long, I feel like.
As somebody who's worked in a number of different small offices, right, I think you can expand that out to what baseball is like. So, I've been with companies that were fine. They made a profit, but they never took the risks because the ownership or the executives didn't want to take the risks. And there's always people at that company, who they show up every day, they do a good job, but they don't do a great job. Like, they don't go above and beyond, but they show up and they do just enough to keep the company. Like, they'll make sure all the bills are paid on time, all that stuff. That's Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman is the perfect company drone in the GM spot. He knows all the ins and outs. He knows all the rules. He's got relationships with all the other GMs. But when you need to go out and get a Justin Verlander, he's not going to be the guy who nudges the boss in the arm and says, "Hey, this is
25."
In 2017, this is, he's not going to nudge the boss and say, hey, we should spend now. This is the time to go over the luxury tax. He's going to say, we're within our profit margin. Maybe it does well, maybe it doesn't. I'd say pass. That's the guy he is. And Hal's the guy who listens to him because he's a responsible, respectable businessman. He's not pounding on the desk saying, get me over the top.
Exactly, and I think the difference was when that changing of the guard happened, right? It was George obviously in charge, and then Hank, and then unfortunately succumbed to cancer, and now Hal takes over, and it's like his first year where he was in charge, we had CC, Burnett, Teixeira, all the same offseason,
A+ offseason,
and I couldn't help but in retrospect look back and go, okay, that was the first year of the new stadium. Dad was sick. Did you want to go all in for Dad, and so that Dad would pass on knowing we got this, don't worry, see what we did, don't worry. But then once that happens, it's like, okay, now here's the rest of it, where it's like you say, he's a good owner because he's willing to spend that by default almost every year, but he's not a good executive in the sense that I've been in LA now since 16. This is my 17th year, right? And I get back to New York 3 or 4 times a year. I'm willing to bet my life I've been to more Yankee games as an LA resident than Hal has in that time span. And I think that matters. You know what I mean? I think that matters because if you're not watching the dynamic of your team, that guy sounds great. Let's give it to him. But I have a limit of what I'm willing to spend. Well, but then you should have that same limit for the guys you don't really super need, like the stars, right? Like Aaron Hicks, we're still paying him. Right, it's never should have got a 7-year deal for $70 million. You know what I mean? I know he fit the kind of profile, Bernie switch hitter, center fielder, not like a star, but this guy that's good. But if you can't stay on the field, like Donaldson, it's a lot of these things moves where we're stuck in the zone where we're waiting for them to recover, but they're not willing to make the recovery happen. They're going to wait it out and then we'll make that move. And it's but now you're wasting years we could be really winning and doing those things. And I just often kind of feel we're spoiled in a way, right? Especially you say you're 41 or 42, right? I'm 44 or whatever. We kind of grew up in this time where it was too young to kind of acknowledge, hey, we kind of stink right now. All we have is Don Mattingly or whatever. And then it was just the rest of 34 straight years with a winning record where we have a shot every year. And we didn't have the luxury tax with George, and he was the only one doing that. So it was it made us the evil empire. But now everybody's sort of skirting and making moves for the thing, and it's I understand where Hal's coming from. It's I don't think when Yankee fans say, why aren't we letting the Dodgers are signing everybody? We're just letting everybody go to them, and it's it's not our responsibility to sign everybody too. It's the other teams are supposed to be paying guys and signing free agents, and they're not. So how many guys do you want him to sign? I just sort of look at it it'd be great to have a leadoff hitter. I don't care what he bet. Is he a leadoff hitter? We need a leadoff hitter, right? I don't care about the metrics, the stats of this, right? Johnny Damon was never that great of a player, but he did his job and he did it well enough where he served his purpose. go get me that leadoff hitter. And, then the lineup can get going. But when you have Rizzo batting leadoff and then this and that, the lineup changes every day. I don't know if anyone knows what their job is day to day.
I'm hoping Volpe can take over as the leadoff guy this year. He seized it last year, but then he relented it. I'm hoping that he can keep it up for a full year. We'll see. But how are you feeling about the team? We got a few minutes left. How are you feeling overall? Do you think we're better than last year? I think that we're solid. I think it's going to be a very different brand of baseball. I think we have potential to win more close games because we're going to have better defense and a better bullpen, but I just don't know if they're going to be as electrifying without the Soto-Judge tandem.
It was something that I heard you mention the other day where it was like, look, during those dynasty years, I think we maybe had 140 home run hitter through those Tino that one year where he won the home run derby and kind of like
97.
went off, right? Like O'Neill, my guy, okay? Like 21, 22 home runs. Bernie, 23, 25 home runs. Like everybody just did their job. And I feel like let's try and make the team a baseball team, right? The Dodgers can sign everybody in the Hall of Fame, bring them back to life and sign them. I'll still take a team that's made like a baseball team. And I feel like, if you have a leadoff hitter, he's going to do leadoff hitter things. And then the two hitter can move him over and do those things. You can manufacture runs. And if they're in the same spots every day, you know your role. And you don't look at it like, well, I got to have the launch angle like this. I got to do that. It's like, no, just be able to play baseball because baseball is going to, like, the ball finds you, right? Oh, okay, but if you're in a different position every day, well,
yeah.
On Monday, the ball didn't find you, but on Tuesday, it might have if you were in the same spot in the lineup or in the field. And now you don't get that chance to get in your groove because now you're over here. You're over here. You're over there. And I feel like, that's the only thing I don't care for about Boone is I feel like there's too much tinkering and I can't locate the source of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it the metrics guiding it? Is it their patterns? Is it who's hot, who's not? And I feel like put a guy in the 2-hole, he gets hot, and let's move him to the 5-hole and bring somebody else up. It's like,
yeah. Young players, when they come up, they play one day, they have the next day off, they play another day or two in a row, and then they have 2 days off. That's my biggest gripe with Boone. He doesn't let young players get into a groove. It's so essential for young guys to get those reps, those daily reps, not only to figure out major league pitching and get into a rhythm, but for their confidence, right? If you go 0 for 3 and then have to sit on it for 2 days, that's just pounding your it's horrible for you. Yeah. If I have a bad podcast, I have something screwed up on the screen. Like the next morning, I'm planning the next podcast. Like I want to get going again, right? It's like you got to get back on the horse, right? So I feel like that's Boone's biggest fault is that I
think it also starts at the lower levels. Like I feel like other teams. I don't know, call me naive perhaps, but it just seems to me like, oh, our star went down. Here comes this 22-year-old kid that's batting 380
right.
that month. And I'm like, what? Where are the Yankee guys that can do that? And I feel like if you're going to sign someone that's 16 years old for $5 million and you have them in your organization from 16 or 17 years old, if they're not ready to fill in just at 22, we have a problem, right? And our guys aren't ready to fill that in. And I feel like if you're not preparing them, don't baby these guys. Get them ready to be pros as quick as possible, and you weed out the guys that never will make it that far, and that's how we'll know. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay with Cabrera starting at third base to start.
I am too. Oh, totally. Or Peraza. Just let him play. Yeah. Just let him play.
Exactly. If he has a couple of bad games, hey, we'll grin and bear it. And right. I feel like this is the year to do that, and I think we'll agree. You've said it. Like I don't remember the last time the American League on the whole was this weak to start the season.
If I have no problem with them going with Peraza or with Cabrera to start at third base, but if they go 2 for 9 to start the season, I don't want to see DJ LeMahieu in there. I mean that's what happens, and we got to get away from that pattern. All right, final question before I let you go here. Yankees had 94 wins last year, 94 and a half wins, over or under this year?
Over.
I agree with you. I think just by not blowing 13 saves, I think they're going to win 96, 97 games. I predicted 91 the other day, but I'm also kind of counting on, the more I've been thinking about it, I'm really counting on a big year from Dominguez. I really think he's, like, I keep seeing these highlights of him.
So I've had this kid in my NA spot since he's 16 years old. You know what I mean? Like he's the guy. And I've never seen anybody just show up and take Justin Verlander in a Cy Young award-winning year. First pitch you see, no, I'm going to put you, like, I'm going to hit the train on my first swing. Like, he's special. And, like, a lot of people, I feel like, got a little too dramatic over his performance in left field last year. It's like, you're trying to play catch-up. You know you're a better player than Verdugo, but you know that he's going to start. It's like, I don't want, like, I want to fit in. I want to be a part of this team. But I've seen everybody drop a ball out in left field. It's the hardest left field in Major League Baseball probably. So I don't judge him too much on that. The only thing I'd say about him is that I'd really like two things. I'd really like to see him in center and Bellinger in left.
Agreed.
Just because I feel like any shortcomings he may face in the field, having Bellinger in left to meet him and cut the distance down.
And Judge on right.
Exactly. Like you have two dynamic, awesome, like Gold Glove caliber outfielders here to
100%
support
agree.
you. And the last thing I'll say about him is that I just really hope that they don't stuff him in the leadoff spot when you need him to, with the switch hitting. I need him in the middle of the order. I need him between Judge and Stanton, or after Stanton, or however that goes. I just wish that we would just build a real baseball team and not a stat-driven, metrics team where everybody has a launch angle, this and that. Like, just get on base, move the guy over, hit a butt, treat every inning like there's a ghost runner on second, and we'll probably win a hell of a lot of games that way.
As of right now, I think I'd probably go with him in the leadoff spot if Volpe doesn't seize it. Just because of the switch hitter thing, you won't have to change it day by day, right? You can stick him up there and just leave him there. And the way he takes pitches,
consistency, I'm with you, right? Because at least it's every day the same thing. Then he can get used to it, and so can everyone else that follows him.
All right, Ray. Well, we'll look for you at the movies and on General Hospital if they bring back Dr. Drake Ramore here. But that was fun. Special thanks to Ray for coming on. You can find out everything that what Ray was in by visiting his IMDb profile. He was in one called 846, which is about 9/11, which is definitely worth watching. I watched that on Amazon Prime not too long ago. Anyway, we are at 47,000 subscribers right now. We would love to get to 50,000 before the season, so go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. It'll help other people find the channel. Next is an interview I did with Foul Territory on, I want to say it was Thursday, where we talked about some of the major storylines facing the Yankees this season. I've already done a podcast about the storylines that are facing the Yankees this season. It's out there. You can find it. But this is a more concise conversation, and Eric Kratz and Todd Frazier are both a part of this, so enjoy. I think Plan B is going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to win, hopefully, in a different way.
Hey, we know this guy, Derek Levandowski, joining us right now, the host and big man of Pinstripe Territory. So, Derek, good to see you. And obviously, before we get into the Yankees team storylines, which we felt like was the natural fit of team for you to cover on this one, just want to shout out the work you do behind the scenes, specifically even with these team storylines. So, if you want to lay out how we're going to end up having one for every team and that people can just kind of roll through one by one if they missed any of them.
Well, as somebody who covers one team, I just find it useful when there's recaps of all the other stuff that goes on in the league, and who better to provide that than us. So we've got this playlist set up that you can go find right there on our Foul Territory homepage. That's got team previews for everybody we've done so far: Rangers, Diamondbacks, White Sox, Reds, etc. And Yankees will be obviously added to that today. And we're going to roll all of these 30 teams out over the course of the next month so that headed into the season, everybody can be up to date on all the major storylines that we're going to be covering here on Foul Territory this summer.
Yeah, there are people that snooze in the offseason, although less and less these days because it's so easy to follow with a number of different platforms, insiders working every day for you. But still, if you feel like you need a refresher course on who's on what team and what the pressing storylines are, that's what we're here for. So let's hit the Yankees storylines, please. The four big ones we're going over today is rebuilding post 1 year of Juan Soto with additions like Bellinger and Goldschmidt in the lineup. Aaron Judge's response after not getting the job done in the postseason and the big drop in the World Series. We've got the emergence of Jasson Dominguez to cover and Max Fried, year one in that starting rotation. So, Derek, let's start with the big storyline. It was Mets versus Yankees for Juan Soto, and our storyline's front end, our animation that goes into this, always starts with a very painful image of Soto in a Mets uniform. So, what did you think of all of that? And do you really believe that the New York Yankees are a better club without Juan Soto?
First off, what a beautiful introduction. We should give the guy who made that a raise, that Soto graphic and all that stuff. But, I was, as I mentioned last time I was on, not on the side of giving him $760 million. I just thought it would handcuff the Yankees. We're already hearing Steinbrenner complain about other teams spending. So we know if he gives out a huge contract like that to Juan Soto, he's not doing anything else. I don't know if we're better, but I think Plan B is going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to win, hopefully, in a different way than they won last year, a more complete team that doesn't necessarily rely on the explosive tandem at the top of the order, but maybe mixes in a few more veteran bats. Bellinger and Goldschmidt are going to shake things up for sure, but they also need some of the younger guys to take a step forward. Austin Wells had a 2-month period last year where he was outstanding, OPS around 900. Can he maintain that a little bit more this year? Anthony Volpe was hitting around 300 in June. He had a 34-game on-base streak. He seized that leadoff spot, but then he relented it as the season went on. The training wheels are off. This is year 3 for Anthony Volpe. Will he be able to step up and recapture that leadoff spot and be the guy that we've all hoped he would become, which is that spark plug at the top of the order? Another guy I know we're going to talk about later, which is Jasson Dominguez. He's replacing Alex Verdugo in left field. And he's been one of these guys who's been hyped for years, partially because of me. But I really believe in him. And I think that, the conglomerate of all of these guys could put the Yankees in a position where they're very close to what they were last year, if not better.
Yeah, and that kind of goes in our next topic, what we're talking about, the Martian, Dominguez. Everybody has expectations going into every year. What are your expectations of him, and is he going to live up to those expectations?
Well, I've been following Dominguez for a long time. Yankees gave him almost their entire international bonus pool budget right around the time I was starting a podcast. So he was somebody that I kind of fixated on, like, all right, we're going to follow this guy. I had this whole thing called the Martian Tracker. He was getting comps to Mickey Mantle and Mike Trout, which is not unusual for prospects. But, he comes up to the major leagues, and in his first week, he does things that only Mickey Mantle did in his first week in the major league. So the hype seemed real for a minute. Then he gets Tommy John surgery. He missed almost all of last year. But if you look at his minor league numbers, they got better and better and better. And from what we hear scouts talk about this guy, he's one of these people who learns very fast and adapts very quickly. Now, he had some issues defensively last year. I'm more worried about that than I am his offense. The right side of the bat could, right side of the plate could use some work. He's a switch hitter, but he's much better from the left side. But look, we're setting high expectations for him, and the Yankees are putting a lot of eggs in that basket. There's no safety net here. He's got to go out and get it done. I'm hopeful that he'll get it done. To borrow a phrase from the UFO poster, since we're talking about the Martian, I want to believe.
Well, I want him to do well so that your show does well, since you have brought the Martian to the people. I appreciate hearing that. All right. Aaron Judge wins a 3rd MVP this year and struggles in the playoffs again. Will there be a breaking point for Yankees fans, or will it not matter?
As someone who interacts with Yankees fans on a daily basis, I could tell you that last year seemed like it was pretty close to the breaking point, if not over the breaking point. I'm interested to see the reception he's going to get this year, especially if he gets off to another slow start like he had in April of last year. Look, Judge is statistically elite. He's a physical anomaly. He's an amazing representative of the Yankees franchise. He's probably going to hit 500 or more home runs, but he's in danger of being one of those great regular season players who never wins a title. Griffey, Bonds, another Yankees captain, Don Mattingly. But Donnie Baseball had one shot at the postseason and really performed well. Judge got off to a couple of decent starts in the postseason early on in his career, but as his statistics have gotten better in the regular season, he has faded a little bit in the playoffs, and they've, basically the Yankees fans have grown frustrated with that. One of the things I'm really interested in watching as a fan and covering as a podcaster is if there's a tangible shift in how Aaron Judge goes about his business. He's always very stoic. I want to see that Tiger Woods on Sunday with the red shirt attitude. I want to see Jordan against the Pistons in 91. I want to see that side of Aaron Judge. I want him to prove that he's one of the all-time greats by having that 09 A-Rod postseason this year and putting the Yankees on his back. Because I keep saying one of the things that really hurts Judge and really affected him last year is that the Yankees lost Game 3 of the ALCS. You remember he had that big home run against Emmanuel Clase to tie the game. Stanton puts him ahead with a go-ahead homer, but they blew the game. If they had won that game, I feel like the entire universe could have shifted in a different way for the Yankees last year. I feel like he could have gotten hot. He would have been emotional and riding that high, and the pressure would have been off. But the next day, the pressure was back, and he struggled. And so the pressure continued until the final game of the World Series. And look, I just want to see how he approaches it this year with all of this, I guess, negative response over how he performed in the postseason.
Thanks for the perfect lead into my next question. We got new guys on this roster. They can look right to Aaron Judge and say, wow, this dude crushes New York. He handles everything so well, the good, the bad. How are Max Fried, Cody Bellinger, and Paul Goldschmidt going to fare in the, I got it here, the Bronx Zoo shirt on? How are they going to handle that pressure that some people fade under? And is there one guy of those three that you're like, I'm a little worried about the pressure?
I don't really worry about the pressure of those guys. It seems like, Max Fried is built for New York. He seems like a very confident guy. Paul Goldschmidt's the consummate professional. He's been a steady rock. And Cody Bellinger's playing for a contract. Devin Williams, also a new guy. I think he's probably facing the most pressure because there's such little room for error. As a closer, you blow a couple of games early and that New York crowd can turn on you, and not everybody comes back from that. But I think he'll do fine. I mean, you know how nasty he is. I like the addition of Max Fried. Everything I hear about him from the guys over at Hammer Territory is that he was a fan favorite, that he'll handle New York just fine. There's some concerns about his health, but I don't concern myself with that because we can't control it, and every pitcher faces health issues. Anybody could snap an elbow at any given point. But I think that the pendulum has swung for how the Yankees are trying to win from an offensive-minded team to a team that's more focused on pitching and defense. And while they might not be as exciting to watch, I think they might do a lot more winning of like close games and, making big plays in the big spot. And I'm just excited to see this team get back to playing baseball again and not necessarily focused on being a home run juggernaut.
Yeah, it's going to be a more aesthetically pleasing brand of baseball for the Yanks. Now, does it mean they're a better team than last year? I don't know. They're at least in that same range, but also, I mean, the American League should be at least a little bit better. The division should be a little bit better. All right, let me finish with a bonus question here because I would say consensus from the crowd wanting to know your answer. And I know you did an episode on this on Pinstripe Territory, but let's get your quick thoughts here. What did you think of Hal Steinbrenner's comments about, the Dodgers being the essentially big bad Dodgers now? It's funny, just an ironic for me growing up in the New York City area in Jersey, right nearby, and all these Yankee fans saying, oh, we're the evil empire. They're not the evil empire anymore. The Dodgers are.
Well, he said that a lot of us owners can't do what the Dodgers are doing. And I think it's interesting that he puts himself in there with other owners when he's the owner of the most valuable franchise in the sport. To that, I just say, prove it. I say, prove it. If you want to prove that you can't compete with the Dodgers, open up your books. Show us that you're not making money. I know the Yankees have a large payment that they're still paying down the stadium. It's like $30 million a year. They're still paying some old contracts, Aaron Hicks and some bad investments and things like that. But they also have an enormous amount of worldwide revenue. What I think he meant to say, what a more precise thing to say would have been, is that we can't do exactly what the Dodgers are doing and make exactly the same profit that we've gotten used to. I think that would have been a much more accurate and honest answer. Hey, while I've got you here, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Pinstripe Territory is the official Yankees podcast of the Foul Territory Network. We are home to the #1 most watched MLB postgame show on YouTube since 2021. We're here after every Yankees game and for reactions to all the best news and rumors during the offseason. Be a part of the show by calling into the voicemail 718-899-1068. Try to keep it clean for me. And if you ever miss us on YouTube, be sure and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Go ahead and rate us 5 stars. It'll help other people find the show. Thanks for watching. See ya.